Neil,
Yes.
what is the significance of becoming God?
As I mentioned earlier, the significance of becoming God is you develop, you gain, you inherit the ability to operate as God in this world. Okay, what does that mean? Operate as God in this world. Most of us, by our indoctrination and education and culturalization, think, feel, respond to life in a certain way, which in most cases is a very limited way. So we're pushing, desiring a greater experience, a greater expansion, the creativity, freedom in a world that has taught you all the limiting characteristics. In other words, it has taught you in a very limited way, right? Intellectually, but spiritually, you desire to be free. This is where the pain and the suffering comes along because it is your spirit that desires freedom, creativity, wealth, riches, a greater experience and expression of the fullness of life. But all of the tools that you have been given don't provide you that resource because they teach you the opposite. They teach you in a limited way. So there's a conflict. There's a conflict between mind and spirit. And since spirit is the essence of all things, it is much further evolved. You're much further evolved spiritually than you are intellectually. That's why when you first come out the mother's womb, you have no intellectual uh, association or name. You don't know your mother's name. You don't know her race. You don't know what day it is. You know none of that. But spiritually, you know you are light. That's why the first thing the child does when the child comes out of the mother's womb is start crying. Well, why does the child cry? Because it's making a demand. I desire something. I desire to be held. I desire to be fed. I don't know who this being is, but the minute you put the child in the mother's arm, the child quiets down. Why? Because the child is operating beyond intellect. But as you become more indoctrinated in this world, the spiritual dimension of you kind of dissipates. It doesn't go away because it can't, but it rests. And then the intellect, the personality becomes more developed. That's why people are quick to tell you, oh, this is who I am. Well, tell me something about yourself. Well, I live here, I live there, I have You're telling me what you do. You never mention who you are because you have no idea. You've never considered who you are. You do not consider who you are. You don't get up in the mirror and say, well, who I look in the mirror in the morning and say, well, who am I? Why am I here? You get it. You've already accepted. My name is this. I live here. Let me go to my job. You think all of the mundane things of your conditioned environment, depending on where you live in the world, you are moved by that.
And let's not forget, I go from 0 to 100 real quick.
Real quick. If any of that is threatened in any kind of way, but you associate your environment and your likes and your dislikes and the things that you have acquired, you take those things for yourself. You identify, this is me. Your car that you drive is you. Where I live is me. My education, my doctorates, my degrees, this is me. That's why when any of those things are threatened, it's problem. But in essence, your spirit, you're beyond that. These are the things that you associate with. And rightly so. I'm not saying anything is wrong with them, but they're a very limited perspective of you. But we identify with the most limited perspective of ourselves. Becoming God is becoming aware of the unlimited and infinite perspective of who and what you truly are. It is beginning to see yourself, to feel yourself, to interact, to express yourself in another dimension, another state of experience, which is divine, which is infinite, unlimited. In order to experience yourself in that capacity or from that dimension, you have to relinquish the identification with the limited perspective. You can't serve two masters. You can't experience life in an infinite way and then hold on to limiting ideas, thoughts, and beliefs. Indoctrination. You have to give up one in order to experience the other.
That was powerful. Wow. Do you think all of this is made by design?
All of what
This
specifically?
world, the way everything is, like you said, this child comes into this world, can't verbally speak,
Right,
but all the desire will be met,
right,
technically speaking,
right.
right?
Technically speaking.
And so, do you think everything was made by design by the creator?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so much, man, that is mind boggling. If you pause for a minute, just briefly, and turn your focus and your attention away from the mundane things of life, your concerns, and spend just a small amount of time considering all the miracles, man, the power, the ability, the intelligence of this creative force that we call God and its ability to do all things, man. It's mind boggling. The things of man, the thing, really? Because all of the marvelous inventions and the technology and the wonderful things we partake in, the technology to record this, the lighting, all this is marvelous stuff, man. The ability to use money, capitalism, commerce, money, all this stuff is powerful stuff, bro. It don't think for a minute that man's world is not powerful. It's very, very powerful. That's why it's so indoctrinating, alluring, because it's God power, but it's not God power at the height. Because all of the ideas, all of the inventions, all the discoveries, where do they come from? The infinite. We're sitting here recording this session on some electronic device. They came into the imagination of men. Now it's a living reality. Well, into the imagination of men. Well, what's imagination? Where do these ideas come from? They come from the infinite. But what we do is we take and we receive the ideas from the infinite, and then we manifest them in experience, and then we bow down and worship the things, not the infinite that gives you the things. And this is where we go off center, so to speak. They are powerful. They are very powerful things because they come from the infinite. But we're worshiping the gifts and not the giver. And then we're not taking the gifts of the giver and using them in the most harmonious, productive, loving, and creative way. We're using the power of the infinite to coerce other human beings, to enslave other human beings, to overpower other human beings, to manipulate and influence other human beings.
What would operating at our highest self would look like, in your opinion?
To be honest, the fullness of that hasn't even entered into my consciousness yet. It would be disingenuous for me to sit here and tell you
Mm-hmm.
what heaven fully looks like. I have an inkling, an intuition of what it is. But I would say this, based on my experience in coming into the awareness that I am God, it's a sense of presence and power, a guiding power, an intuitive power that you can feel, hear, know, sense, that it exists beyond the limitations of this world. And it's real. And the more I experience it, the more I surrender to it, the more I invite it in, the more it reveals itself. So it's a continuation.
Is there anything that God could ever want and not have?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything?
Well, if God is all that there is, and nothing can exist outside of God, then what is it that God could want and not have? What is it that you and I could want and not have? Since we're God. The only reason we couldn't have it is because we don't believe we can. So we're limiting ourselves by our own beliefs, our own perception, our own action, our own feelings, individually and collectively. So the only limitation is the limitation we place on ourselves because we misidentify ourselves as something other than who and what we truly are. We are divine beings. We are here to express the creative power and presence of the infinite here and now. And anything less than that,
I was about to say, what? It's uncivilized? I'm sorry.
I like that. Yeah, it's uncivilized. It's uncivilized.
Neil.
In fact, it's barbaric.
Next question for you. How can I, myself,
Mm.
fully know God?
Do you want to know God from an intellectual perspective? Or you want to know God from an experience?
From an experience.
You have to accept that you are God. Now, if you want to experience God from an intellectual perspective, then we can sit here and we can philosophize all day on who and what God is. But the experience of God, you're already experiencing God, but you're experiencing it in a very limited way. Just like a child comes out of the mother's womb, they're not experiencing life in the sense that an adult does. Their experience is much more limited than an adult, but it's through your process of what we call growth evolution that you expand in consciousness and experience of the divine power and presence of life. I have a dog. He's experiencing himself, but he's experiencing himself as an animal. He's not experiencing himself as a human. My experience as a human is much, much more dynamic than any other life form on the planet. That's why we are God, because our ability to experience ourselves at the highest level. Godliness, divinity, creativity, power, success, wealth. These are inherited qualities and attributes that are given to us by the creator of the universe, not by systems, not by governments, not by institutions. Because of our limited understanding and the way wiser people are using the creative power of God to suppress and control other human beings, it's a struggle for most human beings on the planet because they are not allowed the freedom, the flexibility, or have the knowledge and awareness to understand. That's why it's always said the power's in the mass, the power's in the people. It's in all of us. It's not in just some of us. This divine power is in all of us. It's just some human beings are wiser in their uses and use God power to suppress and oppress other human beings. They're using God power. When you create nuclear weapons, what is the essence that nuclear power is created from? It's created from the essence of the universe. They're not going to another dimension in a galaxy and getting some forbidden and unknown knowledge. It is coming to them through enlightenment from the creator. They're just using the power of free will to use it to suppress and oppress other human beings. Becoming God is the awareness that you and I have that same creative power, both male and female, black and white, regardless of nationality, regardless of situation or circumstance. You and I, by divine right, are creative beings, and we have the divine right and the divine power to exercise and experience ourselves in the most unlimited, free, expressive way. No man can give you that, and no man can take it away. You may not be experiencing yourself as that. You may not even be aware that you can experience yourself. But the only reason you're not experiencing yourself is that because you're not aware of it. Other people are. And for whatever reason, they're choosing to use the creative power of God, the awareness and the acceptance, because they came into the awareness of power and creativity They're aware of it, and they are accepting it. They're accepting their power. They accept wealthy people or rich people that run the mass of the world. They don't deny their power. They utilize their power, but they're using it to, as I said before, to suppress other human beings
for their own benefit.
for their own benefit.
Speaking of that,
And let me say this. Let me add this. And what I find very interesting, and what you most find very interesting, is the universe does not deny them that ability. It doesn't say to you, no, you can't use the power for this. You have to use it specifically for that, because there's an element of freedom and free will that goes along with being a creative and divine being of God.
From my understanding, right, God has laws in place.
Right.
That if you do X, Y, Z, this is going to happen.
Or you don't do X, Y, and Z.
That's going to happen.
Right. That
right?
won't happen.
And I've never heard that, because this person is a bad guy, that if they do exactly X, Y, and Z, that they're not going to become millionaires.
Right.
I find it very, interesting what you just said. I don't think God is in the business of making rich or poor people. There are some laws, in place, and if you put them in place, whatever it is that you want has to happen, regardless if you're quote unquote good person or not.
Right. Well, you have to be aware of these principles or laws or whatever terminology you want to use. You have to be aware of them, and you have to consciously accept them. Because I could come to you and say, hey, you're a powerful being, and you can use this particular law, this particular formula to get these particular results. And you could simply say, hey, okay, but you didn't accept it. You heard it, but you didn't accept it. When you accept it, that means there's a responsibility and a willingness to go along and say, let me apply these. Let me utilize these. Now, what comes next after that, of course, is how you choose to use this divine power. You can use it in a harmonious way, or you can use it in a disharmonious way. Let's use the example, as I said, for nuclear weapons. You can imagine the power, the research, the development, the money, the resources, the energy, and the effort that goes into creating nuclear weapons. A lot goes into that to create weapons of destruction. What if you use that same energy to create more harmonious things? What would the world look like? So what's going on here? It's not that the nuclear weapons are the problem. It's the creative power of God's creature. How this creature is using this divine power.
So basically, it's the intention, right? Here's what I mean by that, right? God forbid someone drowns in the pool.
Right.
Well, yeah, it was the water, the pool that drowned it.
Right.
The
person drowned in.
But the water itself was not evil or good.
No. It's water.
It's just water.
It's water. You're a creative being. You're a divine being. Whether you do good or you do bad, you're still a creative being. Well, why do you say that? Well, when you do quote evil, it doesn't devoid you of power. It doesn't say, well, if you go do something adverse to other people, I'm going to stop giving you power. It doesn't do that. The power still flows to you irregardless.
You can continue doing bad,
you
can have a conscious
right. It doesn't deny you its power. It doesn't deny you its divine power. You still have its divine power. You were never separated from divine power. You cannot be separated from divine. It is impossible for you or I or anything that in existence to be separated from the divine power of the Creator. It is impossible. Now, what is possible is how this power is utilized in whatever degree. But you can never separate yourself. If you took your divine power and went and sat in a corner and stunk up the joint, never took a bath for a year and stuck up the joint, you still divine power.
a bit
You
extreme,
just,
but I
that's
see
a
what
bit,
you're going.
you just divine power that chose not to, clean itself. But the minute you decide to get up and clean yourself, what happens? You get up and clean yourself. It doesn't say, well, you sat over there for a whole year and didn't take a bath. So, you stay over there and you're cursed forever to stink up the joint. It doesn't do that. So you're never denied. Never, ever are you ever denied the power of God. Ever. The only way you can ever deny yourself, and you don't truly deny yourself, you deny yourself in the sense that you're not using it, you're not accessing. Now that you can do, but you can only do that because God has given you his power. If you choose not to utilize your power, let's say one utilizes their power in a positive way, one utilizes their power in a negative way, and one chooses not to utilize their power at all. Well, even you not utilizing your power is still power.
You're just not using it.
You're using your power to not use your power. So you can never not use power. You can't be separated from it ever. I don't care what your situation is.
It's just your birthright.
It's your birthright.
Now you can use it or not.
You can use it or
do
not
good.
use
You
it.
can do bad.
Right.
Don't touch it, but it's your
Right.
birthright.
Right. You can use the power to build prison to enslave people. You can use the God power to build, hospitals and education systems and feed people. Or you can use, God power to build nuclear powered weapons to destroy the planet a zillion times over. It doesn't, God power doesn't say, well, wow, that's a lot of nuclear weapons y'all are building right there. I think I'm gonna cut y'all off. Because if you unleash this, wow. So it doesn't work like that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do you think one of those good old days that we are all going to be awakened and understand who we truly are? What is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to realize who and what we are?
When you wake up in the morning and the alarm clock goes off, or it doesn't go off.
I don't use an alarm clock.
Okay, or it doesn't go off. But you laying in bed.
Yeah.
Right? And your maid or whoever comes up and asks you, when are you going to get out of bed? And what you liable to say? When I'm ready. That's when we're awakened. When we're ready. We're not ready. If there's a holdup, it's simply because we're not ready. When that'll be, I have no idea. Many are, but many are not. In the midst of all of this chaos, in the midst of hell, there's heaven. In the midst of death, there's life. In the midst of hatred, there's love. In the midst of lack, there's abundance. Where is it at? Where does I turn my perception? I change my gaze. I used my creative power to look at something different. There it is. Where has it always been? It's always been there. When you decide that my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, turn from their evil and wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land. When we decide that we no longer want to live in this manner, individually and collectively, then we bring heaven upon our earth. We experience heaven here on earth now, as the Master Jesus said.
Neil, that was fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, all, for interviewing me. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
How can anyone, reach out to you?
There's a link Should be a link in the video below. Hit that. They give you all the information on how to reach out and contact me. And I'm open to any comments or questions you may have at any time.